In the heart of the Saudi desert, a futuristic dream once captured global imagination. A city with no roads, no cars, no carbon emissions. A completely reimagined way of living. A 170-kilometer straight-line metropolis where 1.5 million people would live between two giant mirrored walls stretching endlessly across the landscape. This was the line, the crown jewel of NEOM, introduced as one of the boldest urban experiments humanity had ever dared to imagine. Saudi Arabia's promotional videos showed a world straight out of science fiction. Hyper-speed transit zipping silently beneath the city, AI-managed communities predicting needs before they happened, vertical farms producing fresh food year-round, and renewable energy powering everything without a trace of pollution. It was presented as the future of civilization, the centerpiece of Saudi Arabia's Vision 2030, and a symbol of its ambition to reshape urban life. But behind the breathtaking animations and polished presentations, the real story was already far more complex than anyone anticipated. It didn't take long for the cracks to appear. Almost immediately, the line began facing internal challenges that could no longer be hidden. Construction slowed noticeably. Key deadlines slipped, costs rose faster than the project could keep up with. What began as a bold $500 billion idea escalated to more than $1 trillion, then $2 trillion. And by 2025, internal estimates suggested the final bill could reach an astonishing $8.8 trillion, a figure larger than the GDP of most nations. Investors grew restless, auditors were deployed, and parts of the workforce were dismissed as financial stress increased. Hopes of completing the full 170 kilometers before 2030 faded quickly. Leaked documents revealed that only about 2.4 kilometers, barely 1% of the intended length, might realistically be finished this decade. What was once promoted as an unstoppable symbol of ambition now stood at risk of becoming a cautionary tale. The financial strain was only one part of the story. The engineering realities were even more daunting. Building two continuous 500-meter-tall mirrored walls across mountains, valleys, deserts, and seismic zones required solutions that simply don't exist at the scale envisioned. The excavation and foundation work alone demanded unprecedented resources and planning. The mirrored exterior, designed for aesthetic impact, introduced heat and environmental issues. Meanwhile, the urban design relied on a massive underground high-speed transport system, carbon-free infrastructure in extreme heat, and vertical farming within a sealed canyon environment, all incredibly complex to build and maintain. Time and again, engineers found that solving one problem created several new ones. The sleek sci-fi city shown in trailers clashed with the harsh realities of physics, climate, and geography. What looked effortless in animation quickly revealed itself as one of the toughest engineering challenges ever attempted. As construction pushed deeper into the desert, a new firestorm ignited. The displacement of the Hawaiitat tribe, the community that had lived on this land long before NEOM was ever imagined. Families resisted eviction from their ancestral villages, refusing to abandon the place tied to their identity and history. But resistance came at a cost. Reports surfaced of forced removals, arrests, threats, and even deadly force used to clear the land for construction. Human rights groups across the world condemned the project, calling it an example of progress built on pain. Critics argued that NEOM was prioritizing a glossy vision of the future over the rights, culture, and safety of people who simply wanted to remain where they had always lived. Suddenly, what had been marketed as a peaceful, utopian city of tomorrow was now buried under global scrutiny and growing public outrage. A futuristic dream increasingly overshadowed by very real human consequences. As plans grew larger, environmental experts began sounding the alarm. The enormous mirrored facade, designed to reflect the beauty of the desert, instead created dangerous heat reflections capable of harming wildlife. Bird strike risks increased dramatically. The excavation of a 170-kilometer trench threatened to permanently disrupt fragile desert habitats already struggling to survive. Even the water solution came with a heavy price. The massive desalination plants needed to power the futuristic city risked pumping brine into the Red Sea, raising concerns about coral bleaching and long-term marine ecosystem collapse. The irony was impossible to ignore. A city advertised as the world's most sustainable community was shaping up to be one of the region's most environmentally damaging undertakings, raising fears that NEOM could become a cautionary tale rather than a green revolution. With controversies piling up, trouble started brewing inside NEOM's leadership as well. Key executives were reassigned or replaced, consultants began pulling out, and ambitious presentations no longer matched the reality on the ground. Investors noticed the cracks quickly. Budgets became increasingly vague, deadlines slipped quietly, and enthusiasm from global partners began to fade. Reports surfaced detailing messy internal dynamics, overlapping consulting contracts draining funds, unrealistic financial models presented as achievable, political pressure demanding progress at impossible speeds, and cost manipulation designed to maintain confidence, at least on paper. For analysts and observers, the problem was now bigger than money or engineering. It was a governance crisis. A project of this scale required stability, transparency, and strategic planning. Instead, it was driven by urgency, political ambition, and a top-down pressure cooker that left little room for realistic decision-making. By 2025, the unavoidable truth emerged. The line was being quietly downsized. Saudi officials shifted to vague terms like phased development. The original 170-kilometer dream was effectively paused. Focus turned to a small pilot zone. A mega-vision shrank into something ordinary. The world that once gasped at the idea of a straight-line city was now asking a harder question. Will the line ever be completed at all? And this is where the story reaches its emotional climax. The line was not merely a construction project, it was a symbol. A declaration that humanity could break away from traditional cities and build something entirely new. But somewhere between ambition and execution, the dream drifted beyond what engineering, economics, and politics could sustain. The line didn't fail because the idea was foolish. It failed because the foundation beneath it relied on rushing, overconfidence, and the belief that money alone could rewrite the laws of physics, environment, and time. Today, as the desert winds blow across unfinished pillars and silent construction zones, one truth stands tall. Even the greatest visions collapse when ambition outruns reality. The line may rise again one day, rebuilt on stronger planning, transparency, and realistic goals. But for now, it remains a trillion-dollar warning that the future cannot be forced, and even the boldest dreams must be grounded in truth.